Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Panel B podcast. I'm Alex Jankowski. Alongside me, as always, Julian Edlow, Stephen Buchanan. Ready for a little bit more fun. We just found a life hack to hide the cords on our headphones. Although Bukes is,
well, that's not bad.
It's not bad, but it's not good either. More or less the motto for the Panel B podcast.
I was just going to say, that's kind of how we do things around here.
Let's first jump into Major League Baseball because something pretty crazy happened last night with the Houston Astros and the Detroit Tigers. And crazy, yes, that the Tigers beat the Astros, but even crazier when you look at the odds, whereas the Houston Astros closed at minus 530. Tigers were plus 425 going up against Justin Verlander, eked out a 2-1 win. But it's baseball, right? Like, should they just have not have been that big of odds? That's what I think.
I mean, when you look at the two teams, who is going on the mound, like, of course, Verlander should be a huge favorite. Maybe that was a little too big because, you know, they ended up closing at minus 530 on the DraftKings Sportsbook, which is just an insane bet if you're trying to take that.
Which was, like, conservative compared to some other places. Like, we should mention that they were
very much
higher,
so.
You know.
So, I mean, what makes this crazier is that, and this number is from OddsShark, the Tigers' 2-1 victory over the Astros is the second MLB underdog win of plus 400 or bigger since 2004. The last time it happened was another Justin Verlander start in Baltimore 11 days ago, or 11 days earlier.
Right.
So two times since 2004.
Maybe the guy who leads the MLB in home runs allowed shouldn't be the largest favorite, honestly.
Verlander, in this game against Detroit, he threw basically a perfect game outside of two solo home runs, which is how he got the loss, which is another. Just everything about this game was crazy, and it just worked out for that. What was it, plus 460 underdog?
Plus 425.
Yeah, and it's funny, the two guys who beat him, household names, Ronnie Rodriguez and John Hicks.
Yeah.
Those are the two guys that blasted home runs on him, which, if you played them on DraftKings, were 3,100 and I think 2,600. So immense value on them, too, as well. But, yeah, the thing that's been bothering Verlander the most this season, the real blemish on his season, has been the home runs, and that's what really bit him because, like Julian said, aside from that, nearly a perfect game. Aside from that, they could just absolutely shut down everybody else besides the two mistakes.
So the reason these games are getting these prices, in my opinion, is because of parlays. People in baseball like to take the closest to sure things and put them together. Verlander is facing the Titans. Not your sucker underdog parlays, Steve. Real parlays. People like to take Verlander against the Tigers and Kershaw against the Padres and put them together at like minus 130 or whatever. And now with these prices, when you have minus 530 and, you know, Kershaw the other night at home was like minus 340 or something, you put them together.
Yeah.
Now you're still like, you got to lay $200 to win $100 or something like that. And it scares people off a little bit more. So I think from my understanding, these numbers have gotten bigger, not only because these teams should win and they have the advantages on offense, starting pitching, and bullpen, but because it steers people away from making those heavy favorite parlays that can hurt you sometimes or hurt the books sometimes.
An easy way to fix that, though. Just throw a third team in there.
Or just play the Tigers and Orioles when they're plus 430.
That's what I was going to ask here. Is it too reactionary? Is it too in the moment right now to say whenever you see someone plus 400 or greater, throw down half a unit, something to that effect, just because, especially when you're talking about baseball where it's so variant, like, you know, it's almost similar to like long shots in golf. Like you go the whole season betting a long shot in golf. Yeah, you may win one of the 50 events, but the one that you hit is going to more than cover everything else. I mean, is that similar how you would approach these guys?
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense because, like, on a given night, when are you ever going to get a team, plus 400, even like plus 350? And to get those odds, because like you said, anything can happen here. And especially with a guy like Verlander, who has just been giving up so many home runs, like 2 last night. It's just been an issue for him all season long. But yeah, I think that's actually a very good example with the golf long shots. Like they always have like these astronomical odds, but if you end up hitting on it, you're gonna get pretty damn good return on even just on the small bets here. I mean, obviously, $50 you're getting back over $250 on the bets here. So I think it's just you got to take a lot of shots on these, because even like the notion on Twitter was like, who's going to bet on the Tigers? And everyone's like, yeah, I think I'm going to have to. It's like you're almost forced to throw money down with how good the odds are.
I've come around on it, and you just have to think of it is like when I'm writing my articles and we do the best bets on the playbook, I'm breaking down like, why that's a good play. Here are the numbers for this offense, pitcher, bullpen. You have to think of this as more of a system play and throw that out the window. Like, I'm not going to try and explain to you why the Tigers are going to beat Verlander. Maybe there's a cool number you can throw in there that helps it, but you just have to think of it as a system play and be like, hey, the next 10 teams that are plus 350 or better, if I take all of them, if 3 of them win, I'm probably going to be around even, maybe up a little bit. And like you said, Janko, you probably don't want to play this for whatever you're playing per game. You probably don't want to put that on the Tigers plus 4 whatever, and it did work out against Houston, but you play it smaller, you keep it to a system play and not try and talk yourself out of it, and see how it goes in the long run.
Yeah, I mean the point there, the operative term is that you would always have to do it. Like, you couldn't miss an opportunity, because
you can't talk
the
yourself
chances
out
of it happening are so slim that you can't afford to miss out on one of them. Fun that you mentioned that, though, because looking at tonight, the Astros are facing the Tigers. Garrett Cole is pitching. The Astros yesterday closed at minus 530. The Astros right now are minus 530 going up against the Tigers. I think we all know why you won't lay you're probably not betting the Astros here, but is there an inkling that you go back to the Tigers in this spot?
So why I wouldn't go back to the Tigers is because Jordan Zimmerman's taking the mound for the Tigers. I mean, he's kind of like Steven Matz, where Steven Matz is great at Citi Field, but he's not so good on the road. Jordan Zimmerman is okay on the road, but absolutely atrocious at home. Like, he just can't pitch in Detroit. So I would not feel great about taking Jordan Zimmerman. Like, my money's kind of lying on Jordan Zimmerman here. And the other thing, too, is that the Houston's offense just looked terrible last night, too, against Daniel Norris and the bullpen there. That's not normal, especially against a lefty. Now they're going up against a righty. Like, Zimmerman is extremely hittable. Like, they should win this game. Like, last night was one of those, 9 out of 10s. Like, one time the Tigers will win that game, and it hit. This is not one of those situations. I don't think you go back to the Tigers on this one.
I think that the starting pitching gap between, I think Cole might arguably be a little bit better than Verlander this season.
I would agree with that.
Daniel Norris is definitely better than Jordan Zimmerman. So
By
now we
far.
have an even wider gap, but we have the same price.
Yeah.
So from a value standpoint, somehow you would want this to be even, a minus 550, minus 600 price on Houston to take
God.
Detroit. But at the same time, if you're doing this system play, you just said, Janko, you have to take every one. You can't afford to skip one.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're starting this today, is this the one you want to start on? Not ideally.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, so say this will happen 1 in 20 times, and it happened last night.
Well, if it happens 1 in 20, then you're going to lose money.
Okay. Well, whatever the case. Okay.
You know what he meant.
Okay.
Though.
1 in
Come
10.
on.
We'll go with you.
Sorry.
1 in 10.
11 in the morning.
You go with 1 in 10, and then you say, okay, well, that happened last night, so that means technically, maybe around the 5th time again. But then if it hits again tonight, then you're talking potentially 20 more opportunities that you have to cover before it happens again.
Right. It gives you a lot of ammo for the future if you just, kind of keep a side bankroll of MLB, super underdog bets. If you hit back-to-back nights on the Tigers, you've got plenty of ammo to play long term here. I'm not saying I think the Tigers are going to win this game. I'm just saying, especially with
just
they had to really
the Marlins, and you can start really.
Thank you.
I know
That's
how to.
exactly where I was gonna go.
I know how to read the Marlins. I had them in best bets on Wednesday. Under
How'd that work out?
under 3.5 runs at plus money. Hit. They got shut out. They get shut out every time in that matchup with Atlanta.
Also,
I have a pulse on the Marlins that is
both
second to
positive
none.
and negative.
Positive and negative.
I got to get your knee-jerk reaction here. Andrew Cashner has been moved to the bullpen, so he can't be the most
I don't
profitable.
care about Andrew Cashner.
We do.
At the time he was traded to the Red Sox, he was the most profitable pitcher in baseball. That title currently belongs to on the Yankees.
Oh,
What's
good.
his name?
Awesome.
Help me out. I'm blocked on his name.
Domingo Germán?
Yeah. Domingo Germán is the most profitable starting pitcher in baseball right now. When Andrew Cashner was traded to the Red Sox, it had been him. You want to know why? Because he would win his games for the Orioles at plus 250, plus 225. That's the only reason why. Then you could take a loss the next game.
We're still working on getting Andrew Cashner here
Long-time friend of the show.
Yes. Our agents are reaching out to his agents. Still have no word back. I'm sure he's busy counting all the money he's made off of his own starts.
Everything Steve just said is false. Set the record there on that. Let's move to the NFL for a little bit. We'll get back to MLB later on, talk about what we like tonight. But week 3 of the preseason is upon us. It is what some may believe to be the most important of the preseasons. When you're talking about meaningless games, though, I'm not exactly sure where that still falls on the ledger of importance. But if you're playing DFS, hey, all the power to you. Everyone's $5,500. You just got to follow the news. Or you're just a fan and you want to start to see, maybe for season long or your own edification, you want to start to see what players are looking good. Who in particular are you trying to watch? Maybe a team, maybe it's a battle, positional battle. Bukes, what are you looking at? I
actually think the Panthers are a very intriguing team to watch because, especially with drafts coming up, we like to do it late in the preseason. How that offensive line is going to look because, we keep hearing the sentiment of how hard they're going to be riding Christian McCaffrey. And I don't know if it's confirmed if Cam Newton is playing or not. I believe he's not from what I last heard. But
I thought he was going to be out there.
I heard he was going to be out there.
Okay, he is going to be out there. Okay, but obviously, so that's even more so. How he is dealing with the shoulder injury because that's a big part of it too because Curtis Samuel is someone that we keep hearing a lot of buzz about coming into the season. So I think that's actually a really intriguing team to watch, and they're going up against the Patriots, so obviously another good team going against them. So that's actually one game that I'm actually really looking forward to, not even just because the Patriots are involved, just because I actually want to see a lot of the Panthers players in that one.
Yes, both Brady and Newton are expected to play in this game.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I guess for a player that I'm intrigued in, I'm really high on the fantasy value of Kyler Murray this year. He looked pretty good in some bland sets in the first game in limited reps. He looked terrible against the Raiders in limited reps in his second game. This will probably be, when he gets a full half or so, and then most likely, who knows what they do, but shuts it down for the fourth game. So I want to see how he looks in his final dress rehearsal with the most reps that he's going to see yet. At Minnesota, who knows how much Minnesota's defensive starters will play, but historically that's a tougher place to play, a good defensive team. So I feel like that's going to be a good test for Kyler Murray. That's a Saturday afternoon game.
I would say, add to that too, the one thing that would put me at ease about Kyler Murray watching that game against Oakland is that their defense looks as bad, if not worse, than they did last year.
Yep.
When you've got Mike Glennon and company, Nate Peterman just charging up and down the field like the Raiders were,
exactly.
Murray's going to have to put up points.
Exactly. That's going to lead to slinging it. That's going to lead to him scrambling on 2nd and 12s and whatever. I'm high on Murray. I'm still high on him.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to kick into some level of survivor mode.
Exactly.
I think especially in the preseason, he's trying to learn on the new things that might be different, the different nuances of the offense. And then when you're down
42-20 in the fourth quarter in a regular season game, your instincts kick in.
You're going to go back to your Sandlot style Kyler Murray, and I think he'll be a fine fantasy asset for sure. Similarly, I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson too is in the same boat. I'm surprised he's running kind of as much as he is in the preseason, given how valuable he is. I think they are, though, saying they like what they see in practice in terms of him becoming an actual pocket passer. My biggest concern, though, in that regard is who's he actually throwing the ball to. Miles Boykin's been hurt. Their receivers
stink.
Bad.
They're
receivers.
So bad.
So he might just have to run, him and Mark Ingram.
With Lamar Jackson, his receivers are so bad, and Hollywood Brown, the first-round pick that they used, is just the worst fit for what they're trying to do there. It makes no sense. Go get, not that I was like a DK Metcalf fan or anything, but or N'Keal Harry, get one of those bigger down the field guys that just fits better than a guy that just doesn't work with Lamar Jackson. But on DK Sportsbook, there's a pretty high number there set on Lamar Jackson's passing yards just compared to where I've looked elsewhere. 3,200.
Wow.
We
don't love unders, but
I do love an under there on 3,200 passing yards for Lamar Jackson.
That's a lot.
And I did see in a friend of the show, Greg Ehrenberg's article, he likes the over. I believe it's around 825 on the rushing yards for Lamar Jackson. So I know that defenses are going to want to try and they know who he is now and try and stop him from running. Under 3,200 passing yards, over 825 rushing yards for Lamar Jackson. I love those, and the beauty of it is if he plays the way we think he's going to play, those work in tandem, and you can go 2-0 there.
That's an average of 200 a game. That's a lot for him. Like that.
He was not doing that last year.
No, he was 150, 130.
And then in terms of rushing yards, the season long, he had 700 and something rushing yards. He started like 8 games.
Oh well, yeah.
And now he needs 100 more rushing yards this year as the season-long starter, as long as he doesn't get hurt.
And reminder also that, Baltimore every year has one of the best special teams units, best kicker in the league.
Yep.
More than content taking the field goal, not pushing the ball, winning games, low-scoring games. So, 3,200 does seem like an awful lot. One thing also I want to quick shout out. We talked about Christian Wade, the rugby player on the Bills.
Oh, yes.
Had that long run, had another catch catch and run that was incredible. and real quick shout out Pat Laird. You might not know the name. He's like third or probably beyond third string running back on the Dolphins. Leads preseason NFL right now, 5.8 yards per carry. I got to follow Pat a little bit when he was in high school. He's a good guy. Happy for him. He's leading the NFL in preseason yards per carry. So
this
5.8.
Is Janko's personal little preseason corner where he shouts out a Bills rugby player and a guy he knows from high school.
Yeah, look, my time as a high school reporter was short. I wasn't in a lot of high profile areas. Know a couple guys in the NFL. So hey, gotta shout them out when you can.
I mean, I can't imagine many people are listening when he's talking about this. So people are kind of forced to listening to this podcast. So this is
those guys are probably listening.
Real quick too, the Seahawks. Obviously, we saw DK is going to need some type of knee surgery, so he's going to be out for the rest of the preseason. Kind of interested how they run their receivers for that. Obviously, Jerron Brown. Most likely,
they're just going to run the ball.
Yeah, or most likely. I mean, after Lockett, it's just kind of
maybe Lockett gets one more target.
I know Steve and I have actually been on the same page with this on Lockett being one of our favorite, fantasy sleepers. Yeah. Lockett, Chris Carson is being undervalued because they run so much. Those two guys are going to play huge roles in Seattle's offense.
Yep.
I think.
I think potentially a more important wide receiver injury that we want to watch, Amari Cooper. I think it's almost a relief and maybe something that you take as a positive when he comes out and says what his injury is. He's not trying to hide it.
Sure.
Plantar fasciitis, which he says he dealt with his rookie year and played through it. He's, though, not going to play at all in the preseason. Are you concerned at all, or are you buoyed by the fact, he said, he can play through it and he has in the past?
I think the biggest concern is that they still haven't straightened out anything with Zeke.
Right.
So now you have unknown status with Zeke. Who knows what you get with Cooper, because that's something I don't think – so I don't have it personally, but I know people who do, and, that's something that just doesn't go away.
No, it's a nagging
Not
injury.
me, but a guy I know.
Right. It's one of the guys I know. But it's something that hangs around, and it can end up being, so painful that, you can't even.
We're legit just talking about an STD, aren't we? Right now, not me, but a guy I know. It's painful. It hangs around. Sorry.
Are we able to say that? That's
borderline. Janko just did. Otherwise, we can blur it out. I don't know.
I don't even want to talk anymore.
It'll be after dark.
Feet. Sorry.
What I was trying to say in a non-STD way is that but seriously, it lingers. I know a guy that literally there's days where he can't even walk. You know what I mean? It's just gone off the rails. Of all the people to sabotage this podcast, you are the last one, I would think.
All right,
me.
I'm taking over the ship.
Go
I have
ahead.
some serious things that I want to say.
Holy crap. Jacob has lost it.
That was kind of funny, though, how that spiraled.
I'm trying to give some medical analysis.
I have no medical analysis. I'm not going to try and break anything down. I will just say Cowboys are like a team that we keep talking about. It seems like every week. And they were a team, hey, if Zeke comes into camp, if Dak's there, maybe plus 150, plus 160 to win the division if everybody's there. Now they're a team I'm looking at, all three of their offensive studs are in turmoil. We don't know what we're going to get there. If the news keeps getting worse on them, under 9 wins is minus 129. To miss the playoffs is minus 134. These are, pretty close to even odds on the Cowboys being bad. I don't even want to say bad. Under 9 wins, if they go 500, you win that. If they even win 9, you push. Making the playoffs seems like kind of a tall ask with the way that they are right now. I really don't mind those 2 bets, and Alex still hasn't stopped laughing from the entire time I've been talking.
Say. I mean, in regards to Zeke Elliott, if your holdout lasts more than 4 weeks, please consult a doctor.
Oh my goodness.
Speaking of holdouts,
what?
Because we're excellent at transitions, Melvin Gordon, there is a report. We got some hard facts, not from us, of course, but from somebody else, which we will relay. Came yesterday, so you probably already know it. But Melvin Gordon's holdout is expected to go into the regular season. This one, I think, is even more interesting to me because before the holdout even began, there were rumblings at the end of last year that Anthony Lynn almost preferred Eckler. Obviously, Justin Jackson was playing really well, at least well enough in the opportunities that he got. So my thoughts were always that there's no way Melvin Gordon will hold out into the regular season because at the end of the day, he's got to realize he has no leverage here. Like, they're just going to move on without him and be fine.
Totally fine.
Doesn't seem to be the case. I'm sure, some of that has to do with watching what Lev Bell did last year. But as you approach this, be it on the backups end or be it on Melvin Gordon's side, when you're looking at season-long drafts, can you separate between those two? Is Gordon just completely untouchable for you? How are you approaching it?
I mean, now that it's being reported that's going to leak into the regular season, like, he's untouchable. Like, maybe in the late rounds,
I mean, what round, though? Because that's still not to say he's, missing the entire season or even half the season.
No, but I mean, at this rate, it's like people are still drafting, like, Rob Gronkowski on the hope that he'll come back in the late rounds. Like, I feel
in your drafts.
I feel you look it up, you'll see it. In between your no, we won't even go there.
All right.
But it's like one of those like late round flyers at this point because Eckler and Jackson are fully capable of handling the running back duties on this team. Like Jackson especially. Jackson is so much more built to take on that workhorse role because that's what he was in college. And we always hear about how talented he is. And Eckler's not that workhorse guy. Like, I think Jackson is such a more attractive option to be targeting here from the Chargers if you're looking there because Eckler could come in and steal those touchdowns. Like, he could be like the goal line guy, but I think Jackson's going to end up with the majority of the work. And for PPR formats, he is excellent in that.
I mean, Eckler's a pass-catching back, though, too.
No, for sure.
He could be like a James White, especially if Jackson doesn't separate himself as a de facto number one.
See, this would be like, I feel like something that starts as a 50-50 split with the potential for Jackson to earn the 60 to 70% if he plays to his ceiling.
Right.
I had a draft this past weekend. I think Melvin Gordon went in the 5th round, and I took Justin Jackson in the 15th round, which I was happy with getting.
Yeah, sure.
But to answer the original question, like, I don't think Melvin Gordon's untouchable, but like 6th, 7th, 8th round for me is maybe where he would start coming in because there's a lot of risk, and he's a guy that would be, when you have that turnaround pick in the 8 to 12 range originally, where you would want to land him, maybe even higher, and now he drops multiple rounds because of this. At some point, you have to take the upside there in case something that just gets worked out. But for me in season long, Eckler in the 7th or 8th, which is right around where you can get Gordon maybe too, seems fine. But I would much rather take the value on Jackson with one of those bottom of the barrel picks.
I just feel like the Chargers are being so headstrong about this that they're not just going to let him right back into the offense even if he comes back. Like
they just know that they don't need him the way that the Cowboys need Zeke.
But I would say the other side of that, and what we kind of saw with Lev Bell when he was out there, they wrote him because they're like, we only have him for we're not re-signing him. So
that's why running backs run out of gas. They're going to use their guy, but like for him, they went 4-0. The Chargers went 4-0 without Melvin Gordon last year, and people loved Jackson and Eckler. So in the long run, what does it really matter?
Yeah, I mean, recency bias plays a huge role, I think, in this too, because everybody either, drafted Lev Bell last year, picked up James Conner late, or even a waiver wire, as was the case in one of my leagues. Like, everyone was affected by that in some way, like forgetting how rare it was for a running back in his prime to just flat out sit out the entire season. I think you got to try and operate one of two ways. I think you got to pick one side and then go with it. Either that was a one-off thing, Gordon will be back at some point, and I'm just going to get great value picking him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round because, okay, maybe he still misses a couple games, even, I don't know, close to half the season, like he's still going to provide great value. Or it's they saw what Lev Bell did. He signed a deal that, okay, maybe it's not as long-term as he might have, or he was holding out for, but he still signed it. Like, he wasn't untouchable after that. Yeah. So the Gordons, the Zekes of the world are like, that's the only power that I have. And, they saw somebody do it, so now they're going to kind of mirror that, which is interesting. It's a much larger conversation. I mean, you look at like the NBA where clearly the players are kind of running things a little bit more. Is this the way that NFL players try to start to get back some of that power? But I think either way, like it's going to be a blast to watch. I much prefer like these types of decisions than what we have with the Chiefs, where like everyone's going to be there and you're just trying to figure out what's going to be, because who knows. All right, we're going to get, like I said, to MLB and what we like tonight. Anything though on NFL that you wanted to touch on prior?
I guess one other thing, quick with the Chargers. If Melvin Gordon isn't there, I know Eckler and Jackson are good, but maybe they don't quite run the ball as much. DK Sportsbook doesn't have any season-long props on Jackson and Eckler, which makes sense. But if you look over in the receiving yards, Hunter Henry's there with an over-under of 750.5. And Mike Williams is there at 825.5. Mike Williams is a guy that intrigues me. He got some momentum down the stretch of last season. They used a high pick on him as a high first-round pick on him out of Clemson. And Tyrell Williams is with Oakland now, so he's going to be stepping in from that wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2. So when you mix all that together, Mike Williams over 825.5, I think that kind of makes some sense. Yeah,
taking a while for him, obviously, to mesh, but the measurables there, that they're going to give him every opportunity possible to shine.
This is going to be his opportunity season.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. If that clicks enough, I mean, you think of a guy like Phillip Rivers, got to be pretty similar to a guy like Tom Brady or Drew Brees, where it's going to take a while to earn their trust and certainly to understand what they're trying to do. Especially when you come from a place, every offense in college has some level of sophistication, but by far, they're just trying. They only got you for a finite amount of time. Let's use your skills the way we can and move on. That's a big year for him and potentially some great value there as well.
That Hunter Henry one is really good too. I like that.
They're both pretty good with a big running back missing. Gordon catches passes as well, and then Tyrell Williams out the door. It makes some sense. And just like for comparison, right next to Mike Williams, same yardage, 825.5 is O.J. Howard. Like, I like Tampa's offense, but doesn't it feel like Mike Evans is poised for a bigger season than O.J. Howard? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I would be with you on that. Let's talk baseball tonight. 9 games. Not a ton of day games or anything. Doing just this on a Thursday instead of a Wednesday affords us at least that. I mean, still not a ton of games at night, though. What are we looking at?
So this is actually one of those rare slates where the pitching is heavily weighed more towards them than the hitting, which feels rare in this day and age now. But a lot of big names going tonight. One thing I'm probably going to avoid, though, is Max Scherzer going against the Pirates. Obviously, the matchup is great. The Pirates have just been absolutely horrendous since the All-Star break and just most recently. But we just saw Patrick Corbin throw a complete game against them. He only ended up with 4 strikeouts. Like, they are a very tough team to strike out. Scherzer only threw about 64 pitches in a simulated game his last time out. I don't think he's someone that they would restrict, but I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled him after 80, 90 pitches. So that could mean maybe 6 innings or so. Which, again, isn't bad, but when you're paying $11,400 for a guy, that's a lot to have a cap on him. So Cole is, as you would imagine, by far the top option on the slate here. But there's some other really good options here, too, like Soroka going against the Marlins. they're just looking absolutely putrid. Kenta Maeda against the against the Blue Jays is actually kind of intriguing too as well.
Great at home.
Right, he's absolutely great at home, and Toronto's got some really, really good power. Like all those young kids have like lifted this team, but Maeda's done a really good job of keeping the ball in the park too as well. So I like that as well. So I think there's a lot of good pitching options for tonight, which limits the offense, but I think it's nice once in a while to have a good pitching night instead of the constant barrage of offense.
Boring.
Okay.
All right, I've got a whale play for you guys on the DK Sportsbook.
Good. Here we
You ready
go.
for it?
Andrew Cashner.
Astros minus 530.
Are you
was a
kidding
joke.
me?
That was a joke.
Okay, good.
No, definitely don't play the Astros, and
Good.
probably don't play the Tigers either. But I actually think that Scherzer, I usually don't like playing guys on their way or betting on guys on their first start back from the IL.
Especially when they bat also. A guy
Especially
who literally
when they
hurt
bat.
himself batting, hitting a home run last year.
Yeah, so I think the price
broke
kind of
his
helps
nose.
us out, though. I don't think he would be minus 215 against Steven Brault and the Pittsburgh Pirates in a normal situation. But I don't want to play the full game for bullpen purposes, so maybe looking at that first 5 for the Nationals, Scherzer gets off to a good start, and then, like you mentioned, take him out for a pitch count or whatever. I want to focus on that game early. So a first 5, I think we're getting a better than usual price for a Scherzer versus Brault duel.
Definitely.
And then the Mets, I'm riding the hot Mets, even against what was a hot Indians team prior to their stop at Citi Field. Syndergaard versus Aaron. Anybody know how to say this dude's last name? Civale. Yeah, Mets minus 148. They're hot. They're home. Syndergaard's going. That feels like a really fair price on the Mets.
And the Indians' bullpen has just been melting down.
Yeah, not what it once was.
We saw it last night with Brad Hand just absolutely blowing that game, which is really great for the Mets' futures. That was great. But that bullpen is a mess right now, and Terry Francona is somebody that is so extremely patient with relievers, which is to his detriment at times. We saw it so much here in Boston, and like Brad Hand just looks lost on the mound. Like that was just, I don't think he even knew where he was last night with the way he was pitching at Citi Field. So I totally agree with that. I think that bullpen is in disarray right now, and the Twins are starting to gain some ground again back in the Central.
Well, what if you're a guy that has Mets and Indians futures? And Twins futures.
I don't even know how to respond to that. I think you got to calm down.
This is a good time for Janko to plug.
Reminder that the odds and lines are subject to change. Please see website for actual odds. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and would like some help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Final word. What do you got? What are you looking at?
Go ahead, Beavis.
Literally, what are you looking at? You're looking at the Seahawks.
I just want to know if you're going to be okay for the next show. You went buck wild today. Like I feel like we're starting to see the
shirt.
real
I got
Janko.
my Dwight Schrute mustard colored shirt on. Feeling a little crazy. No, it's good. You know, I think you know,
got to let loose
little
sometimes.
levity.
Yep.
Little levity.
You got to go a little crazy. How about you, dummy? What do you got?
Oh, me?
Was there a mirror there?
That's you.
I actually really like some NFL preseason spots. You can go ahead and fire away and make fun of me. I think that there have been edges so far. If you look at, a team that has a solidified depth chart versus teams with position battles, the teams with position battles play harder. We saw it in that Monday night game. The 49ers were getting killed against a really good Broncos starting defense. Mm-hmm. And then the 49ers backups are significantly better than Denver's backups and have a backup QB battle going on and came back and won that game. So I think there are some good spots here. In first halves, you can, now that we know starters are playing, there's games that you can play like you would normally play it for the first half, and then look at the second half with the backups and play it a little differently. I just think there are a lot of really good week 3 preseason spots. I will probably put a bunch of them out on Twitter, but I'll give you one right now because I got to give the people something. Janko's Buffalo Bills have been an extremely competitive preseason team. They're deep. There's not that much fall off.
Team.
There's not that much fall off on their depth chart, so they bring in good players on the second and third string. And they are right now -1.5 and -124 on the money line in Detroit. Detroit's looked terrible in the preseason and might not play Stafford and the starters that much.
That doesn't
These
matter.
are the spots that well, they suck, and the Bills are showing some promise. So, Buffalo Bills.
That's
Once
wonderful.
again, just to bring up Christian Wade, I mean, he's just
That's the sole reason that I came up with this play, actually.
I figured.
all right, folks. What an episode that was. You're gonna decompress. We might need an episode after the episode just to discuss all that went down. But
Back on the grind Wednesday next week. All's well, hopefully.
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sure. Well, it worked out well. So I had to tour my son's upcoming preschool. I also though got like very sick. I thought I was going blind. It was a bad situation. So maybe that's why I'm in a mood, just appreciating life. Anyways, all right. So Panel B podcast. We got Julian Edlow, Steve Buchanan.
Hi.
I'm Alex Jankowski. We'll see you next time.